Hi, welcome back to the channel. I'm Michelle, and today I'm going to be joining in another collab video. This collab video is hosted by Shauna from Making Everyday Magic. I will make sure and link the playlist down below for you guys to see. So the topic for this collab video is Meet the Teacher. And I'm pretty excited because these are some interesting questions. So if you're new here, I have a 10, 6, and 3-year-old. So this is our 3rd year of homeschooling. And the grades I'll be teaching this year are 5th grade, 1st/2nd grade for my 6-year-old, and then preschool for my 3.5-year-old. So let's get straight into the questions. The first one is, what led you to this path? So what led me to homeschooling? So my oldest, my 10-year-old, was in public school, K through 2nd grade, but I always supplemented her education. For example, I taught her for her preschool years. I taught her how to read. She was begging me at 3 to teach her to read. So she was definitely my first dive into teaching my own children. I do have some classroom experience outside of my children, but this was my first time teaching my own children. So in regards to homeschooling, I didn't know a lot of homeschoolers. That wasn't really on my radar. What I was doing at home, I didn't really consider homeschooling. So it wasn't really until the pandemic happened that I really seriously considered homeschooling. And that's just because although there were some things I disliked about the public school system, there's nothing that ultimately said, no, this isn't the right choice for us. And that changed when the pandemic happened, specifically within our own public school district. I didn't like how they handled things, and it was clear that the safety of children wasn't the highest priority. And just my daughter did a year of virtual school with the school district, and it was just a disaster. And seeing how they treated the kids and how the teachers were actually physically speaking to the students, and how they didn't really overall care about my daughter was the kind of thing that broke the camel's back, that made us decide, okay, maybe bringing them home would be a better idea. Now, my oldest is the only one that's ever experienced public school. My 6-year-old has been homeschooled since the beginning, and my 3-year-old is starting preschool. So that is kind of how we led to homeschooling. And we did have an option of, once the craziness of the pandemic was over, to send my 6-year-old to public school or my 10-year-old back to public school. And ultimately, we had a discussion, including my children in this discussion. We all agreed that homeschooling was the best choice. That might not always be the case, but for now, it has been the best choice for my family. So number 2, what subjects or topics do you love teaching the most, and why are they your favorites? So the subjects I love teaching the most are history and social justice. So history in particular, because I really feel like this is an opportunity for me to relearn a lot of the stuff I didn't learn in my own public school education and really dive into different perspectives, critical thinking. My education was more about being able to regurgitate information or facts, but not really thinking about the things I was learning. And I was definitely given a very narrow perspective of history. So I really have found it interesting learning all these different aspects that I never was exposed to myself, and giving my children the opportunity to learn different perspectives, ideas, and thoughts on history and how it's all interwoven, and why it's important to learn accurate history so we don't repeat past mistakes. The other topic I really like is social justice. So social justice is a subject in our homeschool. I have a video, I'll link up above, where I talk about why and how I teach social justice in our homeschool. But I really like this topic because I think this hits more on teaching to the individual child and talking about growth, not academic growth, not learning your math facts or historical facts, but actually growth as a human being. And this topic is what I think covers that greatly. And I'm so happy that it's something we can cover, because I want my children to grow up being world changers, to not shelter them from the world and the problems of it, but give them the opportunity in an age-appropriate way to see that changes and discrimination and bigotry, those things exist, and it's up to us as individuals to change it. If we shelter our kids and refuse to let them know those things, then those systems will be perpetuated and nothing will change. So I really do enjoy going over social justice issues and really empowering my children so that they understand, even at a young age, at 10 and 6, that they can really impact change in this world. Even with being as young as they are, they still have the abilities to change. So really empowering them, giving them a voice, helping them understand that people are treated differently and how that's not right. So social justice has definitely been one of our biggest growths and one of my favorite things to talk about, because again, I'm not necessarily experienced with a lot of these as well. So talking about these and what we can do, and not just talking about, the problems, but what as we individuals can do. So again, it's putting that power back in their hands, that they can create change in the world. So those are my favorite subjects. Number 3, what is your teaching philosophy and style? So I'm definitely eclectic. I like to pull from many different resources and styles. I don't follow one particular style. I think you can find tidbits from all different styles, but I'm not a hardcore this style type person. And as far as philosophy, I would say we lean kind of Socratic. I really like having open-ended discussion with my children, not necessarily drilling them with facts or this is how you should see such as history. This is how you should interpret history. This is how you should interpret whatever we're talking about, but what do you think? So really nurturing those critical thinking skills, I think, is really important, and just having open-ended discussion and not being so concerned about facts and figures and regurgitating the information, but really having a deep, thorough understanding of the information and developing their own points of view and perspective on that information. Number 4. What is the biggest challenge you face in balancing your roles as a parent and a teacher? So this one's easy to answer. Time. Time is my biggest challenge. So my husband works. He works really hard and long hours. So a lot of things are put on my plate. So taking care of the home, taking care of everybody. And on top of that, homeschooling. And then I do have outside obligations as well. So I run a co-op. I'm the director of Christian Ed at our church. I am a coach for a Lego coding club, so there's a lot of things that require my time, and being able to figure out how to fit those all in, but also how to fit time in for myself has definitely been the biggest challenge, because I'm being pulled in all these different areas, and I want to participate in all these areas I've just mentioned. They're important to me. But finding the time to do all those things, and also take time for myself, has been the challenge. So really the only way I've been able to do all those things is by planning. I know that's not necessarily the biggest thing in homeschooling, planning, oh no. But planning, I have to plan out my time and use my time wisely so I can do all the things that I want to and that I'm passionate about, but also make sure I'm taking time for myself and nurturing myself as a person outside being a mom or a homeschooler or a wife and all those different roles I play. So time has definitely been the biggest struggle, but the remedy I found to that is just planning really well and having a set schedule and knowing what comes next has really been helpful. Number 5, how do you create a conductive learning environment at home for your children? So this is pretty easy for me. I just adapt to their needs. My kids are very different, so I do have a Homeschool Spaces video, which I'll link up above. And it talks about, the different areas in our house. We use our living spaces. We don't have a homeschool room. And it's just adapting those areas. So for example, my 10-year-old and my 6-year-old work really well separated. And that's for different reasons. My 10-year-old likes a quiet environment to work in. My 6-year-old gets really distracted really easily. So having them in separate areas to work is really important. We also make them comfortable places. So both my kids usually work on a couch. We have a rolling cart that goes under the couch. So they have a flat surface, but it's a comfortable area. On top of that, my 6-year-old has to move a lot. She's physically has to move her body a lot. So adapting to that, having her have open space to move her body, but also we have a mini trampoline that's in our family room that she can jump on and get some of that energy and physical wiggles out. So adapting things like that. Also, something I found really helpful is having their schedules posted in an easily accessible place. So we have a calendar, and then we have my kids' schedules posted. So they knew exactly what's coming next. They know what their schedule is going to look like for the week. There's no surprises. They know their expectations. And that actually is really helpful to both of them. And again, my oldest and my 6-year-old are very different children, but they both benefit from having a schedule and a visual reminder of the things that are happening within their week. And on top of that, having their resources in the same place every time. So again, in that Homeschool Spaces videos, I show you the areas we keep curriculum. So my kids' curriculum is kept in one of those file folder type things. Use the cardboard ones from IKEA. They've lasted years, but I have their main math in there, their language arts, whatever they need. they know where to access their stuff. So if they're looking at their schedule and they're ready for the next thing, they can go grab their stuff and not need mom to grab it or need to search the entire house for that one book that they need for reading. Everything has a spot in the house, and that really does make it easier to flow through our day. Number 6, what resources or curriculum do you find most helpful in your homeschooling? So the number one I would say is the library. The library is an awesome resource, not just for books, although we do get a lot of books. So we do a lot of literature curriculums in our homeschool, and that can be expensive, and we have a limited budget. I will link my homeschool budget up above if you would like to see that. But I have only a certain amount of money to spend on our resources. So having the library, whether that be Hoopla or Libby or interlibrary loan, being able to access the resources I need through the library is awesome. But also the library programming in itself has been amazing. So one of my activities for my preschooler is we do preschool story time, which is a story time by the librarian, activities, crafting type stuff, games. So he's getting that interaction with his peers, but also in a learning environment, which I really appreciate. So they have different activities as well for my older children. We are a big fan of the library programming, and the librarians are always open to new suggestions or ideas or books, which I really love. So having open communication with your library staff, I think, is amazing. Even to the point where they approached me last year asking as a homeschooler if homeschoolers would be interested in starting a Lego League, which is Lego coding, and they provide the Spike Lego kits, they provide the Chromebooks, they funded the entire program, and we just have to show up, and there's a person willing to teach it. So that's amazing. So definitely tap into your library, because I think they're one of the greatest resources as a homeschooler you can find. Next would be other homeschoolers, I think, are great resources, whether that be personal homeschoolers, or online. So I think having that support group of other homeschoolers, and you don't all have to be the same or a specific, type of homeschooler. I think we can all learn from different points of view and perspectives, especially when it comes to homeschooling, that although I might not practice a certain style or be a certain religion, that doesn't mean I can't learn something from this particular homeschooler. So I really do like having that support group, that group of people to talk to about what I'm struggling with or suggestions for curriculum or whatever it may be. I think having that support group is important. There's also homeschoolers I find really helpful on social media. So for example, I really like Arlene and Company. She has really helped with my stress when it comes to upper level homeschooling. So like high school, whenever I watch her videos, I find relief, and she's definitely more of a rigorous homeschooler. So I really do like her perspectives and her suggestions, her ideas coming from that. And because she's so much higher in levels than me, it really gives me an idea of where I'm headed. So I really do like looking at those resources. I do say with a grain of salt, content creators, what you see on YouTube, take it with a grain of salt, because there are perspectives, different ideas. Just because it works for one person doesn't mean it will work for you. Don't let yourself be overly influenced. But I do think that online can be a useful resources if used in an appropriate way. Next one is, how do you tailor your teaching methods to meet the individual needs and learning styles of your children? So I think a sign of a good teacher is that they can really take any curriculum or resources and tailor it to an individual child. And I think that's the purpose of a teacher, that they can take anything and teach a child. So it's not so much about what curriculum I use, but how I'm able to adapt that curriculum to my children. So for example, my oldest has struggled with perfectionism, fear of failure, things like that, anxiety around those ideas. She always wants to get everything right the first time. So focusing on a growth mindset with her was really something I had to do and something I recognized while teaching her. So her first year, she had a lot of math anxiety in homeschool. So we really focused on taking it slow. We really focused on that getting something wrong doesn't mean you're dumb or a failure, but it's an opportunity to learn. So restructuring our learning environment to incorporate a growth mindset was essential for her. And same with my 6-year-old. She was recently diagnosed with ADHD. So we're trying to work around or understand better that how her brain works and how best to implement the resources we have to make things easier for her. And for example, learning that my 6-year-old responds to my tone of voice in different ways. So I get frustrated, I'm impatient, and that can be reflected in my voice very easily. and that can bother her. So being mindful of my tone of voice. So just really understanding your kids and the best ways to help them. So adjusting my volume when I'm talking to her, I know, is something I need to work on. So those are just examples of how I tailor my methods. Now, there aren't specific like manipulatives for one kid and nothing like that, but just really being aware of the child, how best they learn, the environment they learn in, and how best to approach them in. Next one is, do you involve your children in planning their lessons and educational goals? So yes, I do. Every year my children decide whether or not they want to be homeschooled. And I mean, minus my 3-year-old, because I kind of make that decision for him. But it's a conversation we have every year. We go over the pros and the cons of each situation. But I really think kids should have a voice in their education, even at a young age. I don't ever want my kids to think that homeschooling is something that was done to them, but I want them to understand they're equal partners in this, that their voice matters to me, and we talk about their concerns or what this would look like in this situation. So every year they do have a choice whether or not they want to continue homeschooling or go to public school, and it's a conversation we'll continue to have throughout the years. But past that, I do, especially my oldest, she does have say in the things she learns about. So for example, foreign language. We were starting a foreign language. She chose French. We did it this past summer, and she enjoyed it. So I talked to her about it at the beginning of the year, talking about if we're going to continue with this. And she said that she didn't want to overwhelm her schedule because, again, we go over her schedule, what's expected of her, her thoughts on it, when things should be rearranged, what she's comfortable with. Because, again, they should have some say in their educational atmosphere as well. So she decided that French looked like it'd be a little too complicated with her schedule, so we put it on the back burner, and we can always add it in later if she wants to, but she had a say in that. Same with my youngest. She wanted to learn Spanish, so we incorporated Spanish in her curriculum, in her schedule. So they definitely have a say. And even my 3-year-old, I mean, I have set things I do for him, but he gets to choose the activities and the order he does them in. So I have a day in the life video, which I did really recently, like last week. I'll put it up above, and you can see how he kind of gets to choose the things, the activities he does, even within the homeschooling. Again, I think they should have a say in their education. Next one is, what are some of the extracurricular activities or field trips you organized to enrich your children's homeschooling experience? So we do have museum pass. We go to the museum twice a year. We have a zoo pass. We go twice a year to that too. On top of that, I do run a co-op, and I make sure we have activities included in that co-op. So for example, October, we go to the pumpkin patch as a group. November, we kind of have like a Friendsgiving where we learn about Native American or a specific tribe or culture, but we also do some type of cooking class as a group. And December, we get together as a group and make gingerbread houses. We have Valentine's parties. We have St. Patrick's Day parties. So all those fun things like that. Personally, my kids, my oldest takes horseback riding, my 6-year-old takes gymnastics, and like I said before, my 3-year-old is doing preschool story time at the library. I do limit my kids to one specific class a year just so I'm not overrun and being a taxi. I don't want to do things in the car. They're fine choosing one activity, and it really saves my sanity and my money, honestly, to limit them to one class. But they do enjoy those classes, and we do have lots of opportunities to have enrichment, which is great. Now, the last question is, what do you find most rewarding about being a homeschool mom and a teacher? So I'm going to take both these. First, as a homeschool mom, I would say the most rewarding thing is seeing the growth in my children. And I'm not talking about academic growth or grade level or learning something new. I'm talking about their ability to grow as a person. And this is something that I think history and social justice really fit into that, like I said before, that they are becoming the people they're meant to be, and they're seeing the world and gaining perspective and opinions, and they will one day be out in that world completely by themselves. So being able to see them grow as individuals is amazing, and knowing that I have a part in that, that what we talk about, that they will, like I said, grow up and be world changers, in whatever way that might be. But they're going to grow up and make this world a better place. And being able to see the growth in them as a person is really rewarding. Now, as a teacher, I would say the biggest reward is seeing them overcome challenges and gain self-confidence. So it can be frustrating learning new things or difficult things, And seeing them persevere through those, not stopping and changing up curriculum because it was too hard or whatever it might be, but seeing them work through something that's difficult and get to the other side and look back and say, hey, I did that. I can do anything. And that has been the most rewarding, seeing that ability and that self-confidence grow in them, that they got through this little baby steps. Now they know they can get through it all. So I think that's a life skill that's really important in general to learn, but they're learning that through their academics as well, because we definitely have a more rigorous academics in our homeschool, and I really do think it's important that my children be challenged in that way, because I think, change is inevitable, but growth is optional, right? So they are really pushing themselves, and not in an anxious or stress-filled environment, but in a very accepting, comfortable environment where they can be themselves and really express who they are, but at the same time being challenged and perpetuating that growth throughout their years. It's really been the most rewarding. So those are all 10 questions. If you have any specific questions about anything I said, leave them in the comments below. If not, thank you for watching, and make sure you check out the playlist link below to see what everybody else said.